This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here with the latest Meteo Mundo forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas for this Tuesday, November the 7th. We'll talk about the potential for tropical development in the Caribbean early next week. But I want to start with what's been happening in Central America with all of the flooding issues. Had some video come into our Instagram account, and I want to show you that right now. This is from near San Ignacio, Belize, and you can see that that river level is extremely high right now. I don't have an exact location. This would more than likely be either the McCall or the Mopan River there near San Ignacio. But look, a lot of you told me in Belize and Honduras and in Guatemala that maybe you didn't necessarily see flooding over the weekend and on Monday, but all the river levels were extremely high, and that is going to be an issue. This is another piece of video from that same location. Look at all of the water flowing down from that higher terrain and into the river basin. So this is going to be an issue again when you're talking about, areas that have hills and mountains and everything is flowing down into these river basins. And again, if you live in the Caribbean, you're not too far away from any shoreline. All of that water is headed that way somehow. We're going to continue to see the opportunity for some rivers to go over their banks and some urban and some stream flooding. Again, this came from one of our followers on Instagram. We have other social media platforms. You can find Meteo Mundo on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. You can also email pictures and videos to mymeteomundo@gmail.com. I promise you I'm going to make a graphic with all of our other social media platforms that you can follow us on. But again, thank you to that follower. And if you live in these areas, let me know what's been happening. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know about the flooding that's been going on in your area and what this current situation is. But again, the additional river flooding as the rivers rise over the next potentially couple of days could still be an issue in portions of Belize and central Honduras and towards the coastline as well. So we'll talk a lot about that coming up. We'll also obviously look at the potential for more heavy rain in portions of the Caribbean as well. I do want to get started with what is happening right now in Central America. And as I do so, thank you for hitting the like button on this video. We continue to see a surge of moisture on this Tuesday, moving right across the same areas that have been hit very hard. That is the coastline of Honduras, the coastline of Guatemala, and then portions of Belize as well. So places like Roatan and San Pedro Sula on towards Amatique Bay, and that's all just moving in, driving through Guatemala as well. Now, for reference sake, Belize City is here, and then San Ignacio is inland in Belize to the south and to the west, again, into some higher terrain, and all of that water will be flowing down into the lower areas. So it's not just the rainfall that's been coming down, but obviously this water is gathering in those river basins, and that is going to be an issue. Now, this is the satellite imagery on this Tuesday. Underneath some of this cloud coverage, I still expect some areas of at least moderate to heavy rain. We'll begin to break it apart, and by tomorrow, I expect it to be dry. But again, drop it in the comments section below if you live in these areas, what you've been seeing. Again, you have any of that video or photos, find us on the other various platforms and let us know. Now, it is not just this area here, and we'll get back to the rainfall potential coming up there, but I also want to highlight what's been happening through other portions of the Caribbean. And I'll start right now with what's going on for our friends all the way down in the Windward Islands, Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, a blow up of thicker clouds, higher cloud tops already on this early Tuesday afternoon. More than likely going to bring some good tropical downpours to Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada. Again, be area dependent, but from St. Lucia south for the Grenadines, so St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados, certainly the opportunity. There's a lot of moisture in the air to fire off some good heavy rainfall in those areas through the remainder of the afternoon. I think we'll get additional showers north of Martinique towards Guadeloupe and St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, but they won't be as concentrated as areas to the south. It's the same thing for Puerto Rico and the U.S. British Virgin Islands. You can see already on the island, we're getting a little bit of cloud development. That's going to produce some isolated heavy downpours, but they're just not going to be very widespread. Same thing for Santo Domingo there in the Dominican Republic and the rest of Hispaniola, and isolated showers possible. And we have this nice little flare-up of convection just north of the ABC Islands there throughout the open waters of the Eastern Caribbean. We'll highlight that more coming up in just a minute. And I do expect us to be relatively dry through the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos and Jamaica. Maybe a few showers for the Cayman Islands, but not too concerned. Again, an isolated downpour is possible, but not a lot of rain as we go through this Tuesday. Okay, let's get into the chance for some rain. And I want to say, if you are getting some information out of this that's helping you plan your day and you want to help support our young, hopefully growing and surviving channel, consider a small donation to either the PayPal or the Venmo links that you see down below. We certainly appreciate your support. Let's take a look at the forecast over the next 5 days for us here. I'll throw this into motion. A couple of notes here. We'll talk about, again, Central America drying out, but obviously still the opportunity on this GFS model for some tropical development into the weekend and especially early next week. There's going to be more moisture gathering as we go deeper into the forecast and farther off towards the west. So let's start off with kind of the here and now, if you will. And I want to get back into my friends, again, in Belize and Guatemala and Honduras and even the northern coastline, or excuse me, the northern areas of Nicaragua and the coastlines of Nicaragua and Honduras. So again, for today, we're still going to see some downpours in places like San Pedro Sula, Roatan, Belize City. I'm going to stop it right here and take you out. Now, again, this is for today. You can see those showers moving through. As we get into our Wednesday, it's kind of the last gasp of that moisture driving inland, and we should start to see this rain finally break apart. We could certainly see some showers in some of the higher terrain, but they're not going to be those heavier tropical downpours. So I don't expect a lot more rain, except right along those coastlines that I just mentioned for today. And then we will begin to dry out. We're going to get a couple of days of drier weather before the potential for more rain to move in late weekend and into early next week. So that's what's happening there in Central America. Again, still could be fairly wet in a couple of spots and then drying out a little bit there. All right, let's get back into the Lesser Antilles for us here. We'll throw this into motion. And again, you can see some of those downpours developing over the next couple of days in places like Trinidad and Grenada and Barbados and Dominica up towards St. Kitts and Nevis. And again, everything is moving off towards the west. So everything kind of pushing from east to west. So you will begin to dry out again in these areas as we get into our Thursday. So scattered showers, especially for the southern half of the area. And then as we get into Wednesday, it gets a little bit drier out there. Now, for places like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, again, it's going to be very isolated, but downpours are likely. San Juan and Ponce and Arecibo could certainly see some showers. Same thing for St. John, St. Croix and St. Thomas, Road Town, St. Kitts and Nevis, again, Antigua and Barbuda, an isolated shower, but this is nothing out of the ordinary for this time of the year. We'll get to see our rain chances increase a little bit for places like Santo Domingo there in the Dominican Republic and the other areas of Hispaniola later in the week. But again, I don't expect there to be any big chances for some rain. You got to look further off towards the south. And I do want to cover the ABC Islands real quick as well. I'll throw this into motion. You can see that I would expect a few showers later in the week, early in the weekend for Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. But what we're really going to be watching for is what's going to be happening a little bit farther off towards the west. Not that far west, Rusty, this far west into the southwest sides of the Caribbean. So let's discuss what the GFS model is painting on in this area. So I showed you yesterday the model that had some tropical development early next week. Again, this is just over the next 5 days, but I do want you to notice that we start to see that moisture begin to gather as we get into our Sunday. So again, a broader area of disturbance. I want to highlight the Hurricane Center has not painted on any area over the next 7 days. Doesn't mean that they're not closely monitoring, just like I am as well. But let me take you out farther in time here. So I'm going to extend the GFS model out another week basically, and then we'll put this into motion for us here. And it might take a second to kind of click on, but I want you to notice that one thing that the GFS model is consistent with right now is development in the Northwest Caribbean early next week. Now, obviously, look, this is just one model, but we do see some consistency from day to day. That's one thing I look for as well. And then we talk about the potential track and the intensity. Those things are very much up in the air. I can tell you the last model run of the GFS, I'm going to take this really slow here. So again, this is Sunday. As we get into early next week, first of all, just look at all of that moisture. This would bring some very heavy rain to Jamaica early next week. And then again, potentially the coastline of Central America as well, and then just trying to wrap up a system there as it stalls out. Now, the last model run of the GFS had this pulling more north and east, okay? And to me, that's actually a solution I buy a little bit better than it just sitting here. Because again, when you get into November, you get these mid-latitude cyclones that come down and these cold fronts, and you're gonna have southwest winds, which should push storms from southwest to northeast. That's a more natural direction, especially into the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico for early to mid-November, for a storm to move southwest to northeast as it recurves with those southwesterly winds. So the fact that this one is just kind of sitting and then eventually kind of goes back into Central America, I think that is certainly a huge question mark. But again, over the last day and a half, the GFS has been pretty consistent in bringing in a potential tropical disturbance or a tropical storm of some kind into the northwest sides of the Caribbean. Now, again, if we were to take this model at truth, we would see some heavier rain for portions of Kingston and Negril and Montego Bay, basically all of Jamaica there. You'd see that through the Cayman Islands, portions of Cuba and Hispaniola. So what I'm getting at is that more confidence certainly in there being the heavier rain potential for the northwest sides of the Caribbean. And then we'll just have to see if this thing really wants to wrap up. So I'll show you the wind gusts out of this, as I did yesterday as well. Again, same model, going to let this loop. Now, I will say that regardless of development, this does look to freshen up the breeze in the western sides of the Caribbean into the weekend, and we'll start to see stronger easterly winds for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and the coastline of Central America. And then it's all about whether this can be wrapped up. Now, again, sea surface temperatures are well into the mid-80s. Certainly could support tropical development. I mentioned it last year. We had a hurricane in the second week of November. That was Nicole off the east coastline of Florida. And again, you can see that this one is just kind of, it spins it up very quickly, very fast, and then it drives it right back into Central America. So this wouldn't last very long. But again, take that one with a huge grain of salt. But just note again that the GFS model is showing some potential development in the Northwest Caribbean. This would be basically mid next week. I mean, today is the 7th, so you're looking at basically Wednesday of next week. But the moisture coming in, that surge of moisture over the weekend and a little bit earlier in that time frame as well. So we got to watch out for that one, friends. That's something that I'm going to keep a really close eye on here. For our friends in the Bahamas, what a beautiful couple of days I expect for you guys. We'll take a look at your rain chance here over the next couple of days. I don't expect much, but just show you that because we cover everyone here on Meteo Mundo. Throw that into motion. A couple of showers are possible, mainly up towards Walker's Key and portions of Grand Bahama, on over towards Abaco. The opportunity for an isolated shower here as we get into our Wednesday. You can see a little bit more moisture coming back in. Could be a quick line of showers moving through Eleuthera and New Providence. But as far as any true rainfall, no. We could catch a couple of quick moving showers in the forecast, but I'm not expecting there to be a lot of rain here over the next couple of days there. And that includes the southeast sides of the Bahamas and into the Turks and Caicos. So friends, as we wrap this up, again, a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, again, our thoughts are with our friends in Central America. Please drop in the comment section below what you're seeing. We'd just love to get kind of an update in your area and how those rivers are doing. Some rain is still expected on this Tuesday before we begin to dry out. I expect some heavier rain through portions of the Lesser Antilles, and all this moves off towards the west. And then the big question mark still is the potential for tropical development in the western sides of the Caribbean as we get into early next week. Certainly, regardless, I think we're going to see another surge of moisture, which is going to bring some heavier rain to the western Caribbean, and that is something we'll be monitoring very closely as well. Again, thank you for liking this video. If you want the latest forecast across the tropics, the Caribbean, and the Bahamas, make sure you subscribe. We'll see you soon. Next time right here, friends, at Meteo Mundo.